Right, we'll officially kick off our meeting now that I think this is everybody who'll be attending today, but we will ensure that the recording is available to have a listen to what Al has to share with us. So yeah, Eleanor is away in the States. Stefan, Penny, Erin and Sue all put in their apologies, but are keen to listen in later and find out what went on today. So welcome everybody. Shall we do a little quick round robin introduction? Who you are, where you're from, and anything else you might want to share. I'm Maddie. I'm currently actually in Dunedin, in my Dunedin office, or at Bridget's house, and she's in the other room, and she'll be on momentarily to perhaps introduce herself. So yeah, I've got an airport pickup to do later, so it was easier to be here on the way. Timing doesn't always work out the way one plans. But based in Oamaru, and I think most of you know, I'm the Southern Filmmakers Collective coordinator. Karen, do you want to go next?
Still got no. Does that sound?
Yes, you've got sound.
Oh, yay! It worked. Oh my god. Yeah, I live just outside Dunedin in Moscow, and I'm a writer, and got a couple of shorts happening, and yeah, it's a pretty exciting time.
Great, thanks. Terry Ann.
Hi, I live near Dunedin Airport. I've lived here for 6 months. I've been studying from home for actually almost 4 years now. We've been farming. I used to work on camera as an extra for 5 years, and now I'm trying to get behind the camera. And that's it. Yeah, thanks.
Terry Ann. Patrick. Great. Kia ora, everyone. Patrick, hang on, where's that gone? Patrick beaming in from Invercargill. Unfortunately, mic and camera not possible in his current situation, but keen to listen in. Thank you, Patrick. Great to have you here at most of our meetings. Really appreciated. Whitney.
Kia ora. I'm based in Wanaka and mostly editing, producing documentaries, but also writing.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Whitney. And Bridget.
Kia ora, everyone. Yeah, I'm Bridget. I'm next door room to Maddie. I've got my headphones on. We moved down from Oamaru last year, so I've been kind of trying to transpose my filmmaking work to Dunedin, and I haven't quite managed to do that. I was quite busy up in Oamaru, and yeah, always keen for a project.
Great. Thanks very much, Bridget. Okay, so today the main focus is us getting some insight from Al into the history and the challenges that he's seen through in the ups and downs and the various networks of the Dunedin, Otago filmmaking industry. So perhaps Al, shall I hand it over to you?
Why not? G'day, kia ora everybody. My name's Allan Baddock. I grew up Port Chalmers. I've lived in Dunedin most of my life, but I've travelled widely and worked in Asia, India and Europe. Today I work mostly as a producer, writer, script doctor, screen production consultant, mainly for offshore productions. But just to give some context in which to see the things I'm going to talk about, I thought I'd give you a bit more detailed background. I came back to Dunedin in 1984 to work in television news. Since 1987, I've worked as a director, writer, producer, executive producer, script editor, script doctor, production and story consultant on screen productions for broadcasters and international networks, including National Geographic, Discovery and BBC and Channel News Asia and blah blah, as well as various short films and New Zealand television shows. So I think what you're setting out to do with the Southern Film Collective is really important. I expect it can also seem pretty daunting. and as if you're taking on the world with nothing in the kitty and a long, uncertain journey ahead. So I hope the story I'm going to outline may help remove at least a little of the uncertainty and help ease the sense of going into an unknown world alone, which it's easy to feel when you're setting out to build something like this. In fact, what lies ahead for the collective, I think, is fun. It's relatively easy, and success can come quite quickly, which is possibly not what you're feeling at the moment. But that's what I see. I've always been a big believer that history tells us where we are and what path we're on. And I'm a big fan of Owen Eastwood. I'm not sure how many people know Owen. He's a local lad who had some helpful things to say to people like the All Blacks and NATO and about belonging to groups and how to make groups be the best they can be. I particularly like Owen's explanation that each of us have our time in the sun, but the sun is always moving. While the sun shines on us, we're guardians of what has been done by those who come into the sun before us, and we're guardians of what we will leave for those who come into the sun after us. And this is our time in the sun. Otago and Southland is a complicated region. On the one hand, we retain a stronger sense of community than is found in many northern regions. But on the other hand, increasingly we suffer the fate common to migrant communities of fragmented, individualized lives centered on self-interest and lacking in unified direction. Everybody's chasing their own agenda, and a lot of what's going on in society around us encourages us to approach things that way. But it can make it challenging for a group like this to see the path ahead, and what path to follow. And yet history tells us that we thrive most when we work together toward a shared vision and build on the work of those who have gone before. That shared vision is what you're building and why what you're doing is important. And so I'm hoping to fill in some detail of the foundation that sits beneath what you're doing. For the past 20 years, I've been involved in promoting screen production at national and local levels. I served as the chair of the Short Film Otago Trust, which commissions locally produced short films. I've been president of the New Zealand Writers Guild. I was a South Island representative on the Writers Guild National Board for many years. For a number of years, I served on the DCC Dunedin Film Advisory Group. I'm a founder member of Screen Dunedin, which was a filmmaking collective set up in 2005. I'm still a member of the Permanent External Advisory Committee for the Otago Polytechnic Film and Communication course. And I was on the organising committee for the 2017 International Conference of Screenwriters Research Network at Otago University. So I thought I'd offer a potted history of the recent ancestry and history of collective screen endeavours in the South. It's built from memory and sketchy notes, and it doesn't capture everything or everyone, so my apologies in advance for anyone or anything I've missed or misrepresented. It's not intentional. This is just an attempt to put the current challenges facing the screen sector in the South in a context, and to give anyone who may not already be familiar a sense of the work that's been done in the past that may be useful or even inspiring as you try to tackle the challenges ahead. Throughout the time I've been back in Dunedin, there's always been an informal network facilitating screen activity in Dunedin. Dunedin has a history as the country's major television production base throughout the 1960s and 70s. Play School, Spot On, Beauty and the Beast, and a host of panel and magazine shows were continually pumped out. There were historical drama series like Hunter's Gold and Hanlon, a whole long list. The TVNZ production machine provided a focal point and training ground for screen practitioners across all fields. meaning that there was a fertile community of experienced screen practitioners here historically. By the time TVNZ withdrew from the city in 1990, Tailor-Made Productions, Natural History NZ had emerged from the state broadcaster to continue the legacy of local production. And there were a host of other small production houses around town involving people who were accustomed to working with the best in the business and delivering to the highest standards. The number of jobs in the sector dropped considerably for quite a few years after TVNZ left, but those top-level skills remained in the region. This gave us an inherent strength, and that later became a weakness. For those of us who remained active here, we were pretty much all ex-TVNZ workmates and all former schoolmates. And most things could be made to happen with a couple of phone calls. We all knew each other. We all owed each other. It was a community. But while that worked for that generation of practitioners, those local networks were not so accessible to new arrivals or new generations in the region. And over time, activity became increasingly fragmented and siloed. People didn't know where to go or who to talk to, or where to get help for the things they were trying to work on. Then in 2004, the Film Commission were touring a roadshow about new funding guidelines for big budget features. There was nobody working on big budget features in the South at the time, except possibly Glenn Standron. Phil Davison and Patrick Gillies were successfully working away at independent features on shoestring budgets. They weren't about to qualify for the Film Commission's big budget initiative anytime soon. Robert Sarkis had followed the drift north after making Scarfies here in the 1990s. So not surprisingly, people didn't find a big budget feature scheme terribly relevant to them. And the Commission were talking about cancelling the Dunedin event because of lack of interest. However, after a conversation with Mike Riddell, who was the New Zealand Writers Guild Southern rep at the time, we decided that if a national organisation was offering something, it couldn't be allowed to drop the South as uninterested. We knew if they stopped coming, they'd never come back. So we set out to rattle some chains, and we managed to get enough people to register to persuade the Film Commission to change their mind and come south. In the end, the room was full or near enough. The roadshow itself was of little actual value, but the Film Commission had a room full of people and had delivered on their national remit, and we'd sent a message that the South was still interested and still a player in the screen sector. But the most important thing was that the Commission funded an aftermatch function at a local bar. There, a number of us got talking about what would actually be of use in the region, and the consensus was that what we needed was to do things for ourselves. So a group of screen industry professionals and aspiring filmmakers came together to form Screen Dunedin. It was a no structure, no budget, no rules coalition of amateurs and film and television professionals, simply working together to promote development of the filmmaking sector today, just to get things happening. Just excuse me for a moment, I'm gonna have to just pause while I go and get a charger for my phone.
Well, good, Al. Fortunately, I'm good at a little bit of basic editing, so I can quite happily edit this together afterwards. Welcome, Fiona. I see you've made it to the call today, which is excellent.
I did. I was having, my computer was just not being very compliant.
Well, I think we all know what that's like sometimes.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah, so I'm glad you've made it. Yeah.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So where did Al?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, so we decided that actually what we really needed was to identify things for ourselves and make those things happen. I suspect a similar conversation to what went on before the Southern Film Collective happened. As I say, it was a no structure, no budget, no rules coalition of amateurs and film and television professionals. We started meeting informally at the Duke of Wellington, and the mantra was just the South doing it for the South. Within a month, Screen Dunedin had upwards of 30 members, actors, directors, producers, writers, cinematographers, set designers, techos, students, enthusiasts, and they were linked through an online hub, and within the year that number had risen to 80 members. Under Mike Riddell's leadership, Screen Dunedin had a website and was running small workshops. People shared skills, experience, equipment, and advice on a no-cost mutual help basis. Brett Mills from Queenstown Cameras attended that first meeting, and after listening to what was being proposed, announced that anyone mounting a production could have free use of his gear outside his busy season. And things took off like a rocket. Mike Riddell moved north the following year and went on to write and direct his feature film, Insatiable Moon. But the momentum continued. And in the next few years, Screen Dunedin was instrumental in a host of initiatives. Members produced a number of short films, mostly produced without funding support from outside the region, many without support from outside the group. The first production, the short film Cake Tin, shot in 2006, was written by Bronwyn Tainui, with Rosemary Riddell as first-time director, veteran TVNZ DOP Paul Donovan, and Mike Riddell as producer. Cake Tin went on to win Best Short Film at the International Moondance Festival in the USA in 2007. Screen Dunedin short film Beautiful As We Are was written and directed by Del McLeod and was first runner-up in Auckland Philharmonic Orchestra's National Film Competition and picked up for screening on Rialto's Arts channel. At that same initial Screen Dunedin gathering, Paul Donovan proposed bringing 48-hour film competition to Dunedin. And so that happened. 35 teams entered the first year. By its fourth year, we were up to over 50 teams and comparable numbers to Northern centres. And by 2009, Parry Jones' animated short film Charlotte became the first animated film in the competition's 7-year history to take home the grand prize. And Charlotte was picked up for representation by the New Zealand Film Commission. In 2005-2006, Screen Dunedin members were involved in producing the table drama series, low-cost half-hour dramas for regional television, initiated by Richard Thomas and long-time 14 Theatre stalwart Murray Hutchinson. That model was then taken nationwide, and a similar series was adapted for Maori TV. Screen Dunedin founding members Richard Thomas and Stephen Downs established the Short Film Otago Trust with funding from the Community Trust of Otago, and nurtured 3 short films by new filmmakers in 2007, and is still going, having since developed and funded more than 20 short films and provided production experience to hundreds of new entrants. In 2007, having taken over from Mike Riddell as Writers Guild Southern Rep, I worked with Simon Marler from Script to Screen and the Writers Guild to stage a 3-hour combined writers' room panel discussion and date night speed pitching session with local producers. It was, as far as I know, the first Dunedin craft event by a national screen organisation. The event showed there was support for such events in the South, and the following year, Simon and I expanded it to a full day festival of filmcraft, bringing together local and national experts to run film workshops and seminars, as well as networking sessions to connect producers with local writers and directors. The following year, May 2008, Screen Dunedin worked with national screen industry organisations to expand on that small beginning and stage a full-day festival of filmcraft, bringing together local and national experts to run film workshops. We had the Film Commission, the Writers Guild, Script to Screen, Screen Directors Guild, SPARTA, the DCC, Natural History NZ, and attendees came from as far afield as Invercargill, Queenstown and North Otago. I'm not sure if you were there, Maddie. By way of illustration of the gulf that existed between the local community and the national screen industry, After the Film Commission's then head of development, Hone Kuka, finished his outline of how to develop a feature film screenplay, the first question he was asked was, "What's the Film Commission?" National screening organisations were simply unknown entities for most in the South. The structure and operation of the sector was unknown. The screen industry was something that happened up north and overseas. It was a mark of how things had eroded in the South since TVNZ left the city in 1990. But the thirst and the energy was clearly there. In March 2009, we expanded the Dunedin Festival of Film and Television Craft to 2 full days. And in 2010, we consolidated the event as a key element of the Southern film calendar. By then, the 2-day festival had become a mainstay of Dunedin's emerging profile as one of the country's most dynamic centres of the developing screen industry. It was part of Screen Dunedin, and the Festival of Film and Television Craft was part of a unique regional experiment that defied most conventions on what is required to establish a successful screen production base. There was no structure, there was no rules, it was pure altruism. The model was tested and proven over 5 years, and in numerous arenas and manifestations. But 3 things that I observed throughout that journey stand out. The first was the critical role of communication. In March 2008, we held 2 meetings to gather feedback on what sort of things people wanted to help filmmaking in and around Dunedin. Attendees ranged from hobbyists and students to set designers and researchers and film festival directors and the usual coterie of writers, directors, producers, and experimental film buffs. We had everything from teenage school students up, as well as people from the Writers Guild, the DCC, Short Film Otago, and various production companies. Participants identified 13 specific wishes, but better communication, more workshops, and opportunities to meet producers were top of the list. They may sound familiar to people who are looking at things today. By 2011, almost half of those things had been addressed to greater or lesser extent. Between 2009 and 2011, we brought a dozen different producers to the South to meet with and audition local filmmakers and writers. We had expanded the craft festival from 1 day to 2, and we're working on holding more than 1 a year. And planning was underway to involve national organisations in providing the remainder of the things that people wanted. To satisfy the thirst for communication across the sector, Dylan McLeod helped me set up the Dunedin Film Google discussion group among the local filmmaking community, with membership open to anyone south of the Waitaki River. Over the following years, Dunedin Film was joined by something over 250 screen and performance practitioners across southern New Zealand, from the Waitaki River south to Bluff and inland to Queenstown and Glenorchy. It became the primary means of news exchange for the sector in the South and enabled us to quickly disseminate information from the national organisations. But more than that, it was a forum to discuss upcoming Southern projects, find people, keep everybody in touch with what's going on, and solve problems that may arise, or just to discuss ideas and or gripes. It's informal. It's open to anything which helps people with what they're trying to make happen in the South. And if you wanted something in the South, someone in Dunedin Film can likely offer it or point you to it. People have used it to find microphones, actors, advice on editing software, and to channel industry news to the community. It's a passive channel. It doesn't require signing up to additional platforms, just an email address. News and posts just come to your mailbox. The idea was primarily so those who want to know could connect with those who know. Dunedin Film Group has proven very effective at getting a number of projects happening and was central to getting a great turnout at the Film and Television Craft Weekends. Also the 2017 screenwriting workshop, and enabling production of Beautiful as We Are with just a 1 month turnaround. We just put a call out and we rallied the people that we needed and we made it happen. Over time, national organisations called on us to reach audiences they couldn't reach, and we were able to support events and fill venues as far away as Christchurch for WIFT, YouTube and the Film Commission. During the hiatus of the past few years, people have drifted to Facebook and WhatsApp, and various other organisations have set up their own databases and communication channels. But what comes with scattering is fragmentation. And that may mean that not everybody feels involved, or it's harder to identify where to go for information. But regardless of what is right for now, for that time, the Dunedin Film Online Discussion Forum became the centrepiece of a renaissance Southern film community that gathered national attention. It fueled a sense of community and vibrancy that hadn't existed previously by emphasising the all for one, one for all collegiality that it fostered, and the effects in stirring enthusiasm and motivation among local filmmakers simply through generating discussion and a sense of momentum was immense. And there was a dozen or more new film projects that were brought to my attention within a matter of months as a direct result of establishing the Dunedin Film mailing list. So the importance of getting communication right is the first thing I took away. But newsletters and emails aren't everything, and they need to be combined with actual engagement. I'm bombarded daily by emails from all manner of people and organisations who think they're quote unquote engaging with me. But communication is irrelevant unless it's relevant. It has to be from someone you feel involved with. It has to be focused on what you want to know and not just on what the sender wants to tell you. Most communications I see from screen organisations tell me what they want to tell me, not what I want to know. Communication has to be primarily about the recipient, not the sender. And I think that's quite important if you're setting up any organisation or group, is that you have to always be focusing on asking yourself, is what I am saying relevant to the person I'm trying to talk to, or more to the point, how do I frame what I'm saying to the people I'm trying to talk to, so that it comes from their life and not just from yours. Communication has to be linked with other things that actually make the connection a real part of a person's life. And so that fed into how we structured the screen workshop weekends. The Festival of Screencraft weekends were designed as much to build connections between people as they were about learning skills. The workshops we ran were important in the moment and shared lots of useful stuff, but the real value was what was built by bringing people together. The venue was as important as the workshops. It had to be convivial, and it had to include a cafe and space for people just to meet and bump into each other and catch up. Because mixing and mingling of people across all strata of the sector was key. The workshop program was primarily designed to create an event that was big enough that it demanded a place in people's schedules. That made something worth traveling away from home for and giving up their night in front of Netflix or whatever. But once people had committed to coming, finding who else was around and having conversations over coffee or a beer was at least as important as the workshops. If people come for a workshop, they sit and listen for an hour or so. They maybe talk to somebody at the aftermatch function. Then they go home. The beauty of the Festival of Screencraft weekends was that people were here for 2 days. That meant meeting lots more people It meant 4 coffee and drink sessions a day to grab a word with a producer or someone of like mind, and maybe even a meal out that night to really pursue those new relationships. People committed the time to invest in building their screen careers. Now, none of this is radical or new, but it's easy to downplay, and it works. The director of Script to Screen at the time said Dunedin was shaping up as the natural cultural centre for the film and television industry in New Zealand. That was feeding on the South's cohesive community and pan-industry communication, collaboration, and that was pretty remarkable given at the time there was actually nothing really being made in the South. I mean, note, all the industry was centred up north, but Simon Marler saw Dunedin as emerging as the cultural centre for the film and television industry. The New Zealand Film Commission said they'd committed to returning year after year, because in their words, Dunedin was hot. National organisations reported that northern events tended to be restrained and very competitive affairs where people were afraid to engage for fear of being ridiculed or of giving away intel to competitors. Dunedin's community spirit and embracing of all comers made people feel free to reveal their gaps and share their insights, and there was a special energy and active engagement here that even the Film Commission presenters found exciting. Producers actually asked to be invited back because it's the interactions that are the fun part of filmmaking. So that was the second thing I took away from that whole time. The third thing that has stayed with me is the role of vision and leadership. Any movement relies on clear leadership, and a good leader can make a lot of exciting things happen. But when the leadership fades, so does the momentum. And individual leaders will always fade. As others have said, we each have a time in the sun. So it's important not to just rely on individuals. A mistake I made with the original festival weekends was not building a broader core team. I had a diverse network of contacts nationally and locally built up over many years, and there were willing supporters around here. And it had simply been easier to do things myself than worry about putting structures in place. When it became unviable financially for me to continue coordinating things without funding, as I had been, the challenge of seeking out financial support was just another job needing doing. I was already overcommitted, and I've never had an appetite for the shenanigans of funding politics. I can do it, but I don't do it willingly. I'd rather just get on with the job. But it meant that when I exhausted my capacity to self-fund the work, there was no underpinning structure to support somebody else to pick it up. There was no succession plan. I've long argued that the sector needs an independent community-funded professional facilitator working as a regional public service, not under the local council, not at the direction of any national organisation. It needs to be someone and something that people in the sector have confidence in and has demonstrated ability to work across the sector at all levels for the interests of the region. But the detail of that is something to talk about another day. I've put proposals to the DCC and the Film Commission several times at their request, but the vagaries of internal agendas and individuals has stymied progress. And because people in paid positions tend not to value the time and effort of people working unpaid, I've chosen to move on to where progress can more readily be made. I have little enthusiasm for arguing with rocks. It's just a personal thing. Some people are good at it, but if there's a rock in the way, I'd rather just go around it. But if you're looking to pick up the journey to growing a strong regional screen sector, I'd urge you to focus on funding. Putting on a workshop is easy enough. The key to building a sustained movement is enabling someone to put their time and expertise into organising workshops in the long term and building the community and organisational infrastructure that makes those workshops part of an ongoing integrated strategy and culture. The DCC and FOSS have begun moving in this direction recently. There's a way to go yet, and I think it needs to be industry and community owned, not bureaucracy owned and not bureaucracy led. The agendas will always be different. The film sector has been handicapped throughout my time in it by a lack of professionalism. People want to tell stories and they want to make screen content. People enjoy it. For too long, this has been used to build a sector that relies on people doing things without being paid. Funders have long been guilty of this, whether it's developing films or organising sector events. It's born partly out of trying to stretch funds as far as possible, but it's a form of exploitation. And ultimately, it's a disservice to the entire sector. It holds us back. I would urge you not to be seduced into focusing on workshops alone. To build sustained screen sector development in the South, I encourage you to focus on putting funding measures in place so that the work of building the film community does not rely on unpaid volunteers. Short Film Otago has been sustained over almost 20 years, not because it generates stunning short films, but because it operates on a funding model that has meant it has been able to continue even as personnel have changed. However, Short Film Otago relies unfairly on a small group of unpaid volunteers still. It makes operations unprofessional and inefficient. So that's a challenge that I see ahead for the Southern Film Collective. To paraphrase Owen Eastwood again, while the sun shines on us, we are the guardians of what has been done by those who came into the sun before us, and guardians of what we leave for those who come into the sun after us. While it may seem a lonely mission in an unknown land, you're not isolated and alone. There is a whakapapa behind what you're doing, a long list of ancestors who have travelled these paths before you, and there will be others who come after you. And I just urge you to draw on what has been done by those before you, take heart from what's been done by those before you, and go into the future with a clear sense of where you are and what lies behind and ahead. That's it. One verbal over.
Brilliant. Thank you, Al. Thank you. I honestly, yeah, can hear. I understand a lot more about. There's a, apart from, you know, that you're talking right from early days, TVNZ days, through the 90s, early 2000s, and all those things that went on in the early 2000s. But then also for me, it's that I really didn't come on the film scene at all 2012, probably 2014, before I had any real contact with you and people in Dunedin. So, I mean, that was, you know, what I saw was the Writers Guild, the Screenwriters Conference, which was amazing and steered me, you know, with your support, steered me towards producing at that point. But to have a little bit more of an understanding, and I really think this does need documenting from what you've said of that history is really helpful. Has anyone got burning questions for Al from what he said? I think it was a pretty succinct sharing of the situation, and very hopeful for us in being able to draw on your experience and that, yeah, those pointers that you've given us at the end for really ensuring that it is industry led, and that we make sure that we don't end up with burning out volunteers, which is what happens if we were unable to delegate.
One of the things I didn't really touch on is I think the importance of developing a clear and succinct vision of who you are and what you're setting out to do. None of I mean, what happened in the wake of that aftermatch function, funded by the Film Commission. What happened was, I mean, that came on the back of years of pent-up frustration, where people had been trying to get things happening in their own arenas, but everything was fragmented and there was sort of no cohesion about it. And really, it came together very quickly in terms of just saying, yep, this is frustrating, let's do something, which I imagine is similar to the motivation for Southern Film Collective. But then what happened after that was not really structured. It was mainly anchored in that collective spirit to say, yes, let's do this and let's help each other. And so people went off in a variety of different directions, and things happened sort of spontaneously, but with the heart, if you like, of Screen Dunedin there as a unifying anchor, and so people felt able to get in touch with somebody, and say, hey, can you help with this? Hey, I'm doing this. Who can help? Who can give me this? Who can point me at that? And it was the idea as much as anything that was the most empowering. One of the things that has concerned me in the short history of Southern Film Collective is invisibility, that strikes me as, and it may just be invisible to me, it may be the rest of the world knows all about it and is flocking in, but I think having an easy accessible gathering and regular gatherings and somewhere that's really easy to go to or be seen, I think is really critical, because it's from that sense of community that I think the activity will happen. It's not from having a centralized, directed activity. It's from that ferment. Anyway.
No, I hear that, and that makes me think of that. I think in our wish to have things not necessarily perfect, but as close to perfect and as close as defined as we can, we delay having the website up and running and having the first actual face-to-face meetings. And in actual fact, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it will evolve. That there will be from the members will evolve more. It doesn't, it has to be set in stone before we start, even though we've already started.
if you think of it like a culture, if you think of it like a village, the community happens, and then it builds the houses and the roads, to actually facilitate what it's trying to do. But until you have the core community, there's no reason for the other things. Just going back to the Screen Dunedin example, I mean, really, there was literally, like say, a bunch of people were drinking over a beer after the film commission event. That prompted conversations they then followed up on, in their own spaces. Mike Riddell, who was happened to be the Writers Guild rep at the time, was really the only organizational representative, in the region, and so a few of us who were Writers Guild members, hassled Mike in terms of saying, "Oh yeah, the guild should be doing this." It wasn't really a guild. It wasn't really a Writers Guild responsibility. But Mike, being Mike, took it on, and literally, he just called the meeting. We kicked around a few emails and came up with the name Screen Dunedin. Mike's son developed a website and put it up, and just said to people, "Hey, if you got something, you want to draw to people's attention, put it on here." And then, like I say, we got together at the Duke of Wellington, and people sat around and said, "Hey, why don't we do this and why don't we do that?" There was nothing formalized about it. There was nothing perfect about it. The only thing that was perfect about it was the communal expression of a will, and a desire, and then like I say, it just needed a few people to. It was like various individuals were empowered, were liberated to go and do things that they had felt were needed, and they then had the sense of a community behind them, that gave them the confidence to go out and do it. And so I guess what I was really trying to do today was to give those of you behind the film collective a sense of a community being behind you, and all those people who have been on this path before. It's like they're all there, and they're all affirming what you're trying to do. I wouldn't worry too much about the formalities, but I would focus on having that empowering vision, and then it gives people something to respond to and respond from.
Right. Thanks. That is really helpful. Al, has anyone got any further comments? Anything they'd like to share as to their thoughts or takeaways from today?
I think if I could just, well, first, thanks, Al, so much. That was really interesting and enlightening, especially for me who hasn't lived here for a super long time. But one of your comments that really stood out to me was talking about the difference between North and South in terms of that competitive spirit versus the collaborative spirit. And I think that really resonates with this group, but I also hope that really continues, and that that people do speak out of just openness and wanting to help each other, and less so out of that competitive giving things away kind of spirit, because I've definitely seen a lot of that over time as well. And it's just one of the things that I really value about everybody who's come together for the collective, and I'm excited to see that continue and see where we can help each other grow. So thanks for pointing that out. That's encouraging to know that that's been a long-standing value. Yeah.
I mean, to an extent, it's an accident of history, because Dunedin was the first city in the country. It grew before all the others. It had an infrastructure here that then stayed relatively static for 100 years. And so we retained a sense of community when other centres were swamped in migrants and growth. And it's being threatened and challenged because we're getting more and more migrants, and yourself included. It's like that's the nature of it. You get this flush of new people coming in, but that's why to hang on to those community values, we have to identify them, we have to recognize them, and we have to recognize the value that comes from them, and then we have to say, okay, now how do we work to make them sustain? How do we make them persist? And that's what I think the Southern Film Collective is about. Is hanging on to those core values of community rather than self-interest.
So I have a question, kind of 3 parts. Is it worth? Is there a way, and would they be interested of contacting those who came before?
Scarily, quite a number of them are still around. Sadly, a number are not. Mike Riddell passed away in the last year or the year before, from cancer. But a lot of them are around. A lot of them are still on the Dunedin Film mailing list. It would be easy enough. It would be easy enough for me to send an email out, to the discussion group. If the Southern Film Collective was keen to actually, meet up with them or contact them or get involved, it'd be easy enough to put a whistle out and say, hey guys, this is happening. Who's around? I mean, unfortunately, what goes with a long history is that some of us age, so some of those who have been central to things, maybe getting a bit long in the tooth now. But I know there's a good number around. I mean, I still have friends here who were operating cameras on the first day of television in Dunedin in 1960. One of the things about Dunedin is that there is still a core of stable population, and whereas people might drift in and out of other centres, more frequently. Dunedin has a reasonably stable population. So, first answer to your first part of your question is, yep, there's probably a good number of them still around. I have been less active in this area over the last few years, just because life took me elsewhere. But
yes. So is Dunedin Film still active, or is it just mainly
Dunedin Film Dunedin Film is quietly active. I still post things. There, and from time to time, people post questions and ask for things. But it's in hibernation rather than dead. Right, and it's because through the years when I was running the film workshops, and probably through the screenwriters conference as well, I mean, it was my main means of saying, hey, this is on, who's coming, and so I was pumping it out. I have been less involved with the broader organisations in the last 4 or 5 years. So therefore, I haven't been stirring that energy.
Yeah, I thought I was on that mailing, but I certainly don't think I've seen anything in the last 4 years. But I may have.
I send things out. I still send things out. You should have seen things, but maybe the email maybe the email addresses need to be tidied up. Certainly I still get the moderators' spam reports from Google twice every week. But I still send out things that are coming up that I think people are likely to be interested in. And I do it in the same way I was talking about, in terms of reframing them from saying, the usual sort of industry organisation thing, saying, short film workshop, South Auckland, and I leave those out, but when something's happening down here, I reframe them in terms of personalising them to our community, and send them out in terms of saying, hey, this is something you might, that may actually be of interest to us. I mean, we can.
Are people still joining your? Sorry, are people still joining your list?
They haven't been recently. The main impetus was generally from the workshops. When I wave the piece of paper at the front of the room and say, if you're not on the list, sign up here. So now it relies on people who actively seek it out. And I've always found that things that rely on people acting to be relatively less efficient ways of getting people engaged. It's I find it works much better if you go to them and make it easy for them rather than relying on them to act. So we're not getting a lot of new people joining up, but that's also in the last 4 or 5 years, we've got to recognise that the online environment has changed. And now people are addicted to Instagram and WhatsApp and Facebook and so it's harder to actually know where to actually go to actually shoulder tap people and get in their space. Again, that's where the events served a vital role in terms of we'd publicise them by all the ways we can publicise them, but particularly word of mouth. And then when people were there, then we'd go, righto, okay, if you want to know about these things and you want to be involved, sign up. I mean, it's fundamentally it comes down to marketing.
So we can sign up if we want to.
Absolutely. Look, I'll if I was more clever, I would post the link here now, but I'm not that clever because I've got the link on my laptop and
I'll get it off you, Al, and I'll share it with the recording.
Okay, yeah. But no, I know it's that'll be great. I'll send it through.
Cool. Thank you very much. Okay. Anybody else?
So did I answer all 3 questions?
Yep.
I got.
Well, apart from, do you think the ones that have come before, not so much newish ones, are still interested? I guess it depends how mature or senior they are as to whether people are interested.
But one of the things I've observed is that people who've been involved in this sector tend to have a passion for it. I mean, I know people who I worked with at TVNZ back in the 80s, who certainly until recently, I haven't spoken to them in the last wee while, but we're still meeting up every Wednesday to have a beer. It is a community. It is a community, and we may not talk to our brothers and sisters and cousins, every other week, but we don't stop being brothers and sisters and cousins. And people have a wealth of experience. Paul Donovan, who I mentioned, somebody relatively recently was talking about something he was helping them with. And generally, if people are asked, to share their expertise and advice, they're more than willing to do it. Yeah. Old people like being valued.
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. Yeah, that's good.
Great. Okay. Thank
Hi.
you.
Oh,
Oh yeah, Bridget, go.
well, I just want to say thanks very much, Elle. It was really interesting to hear the history of Dunedin filmmaking, which I wasn't aware of, and just how like the kind of broad, inclusive kind of culture and more kind of organic way that it was kind of evolving out in the provinces, like, kind of independently. I just wanted to like make an observation that one thing I think has changed so much in that time of, the history that you were overviewing is how accessible it is now to make film. It's
Absolutely.
just completely changed. And now, so like for me, I'm really excited about taking that technology in my very non-technical way and making films. And
Absolutely.
I'm very daunted by the film industry. Like I just, I feel really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But I think there's a place, there's definitely a place, and I've worked in it. Like when I was living in Oamaru, I made lots of films. And I feel that if, for Southern Filmmakers Collective to have an arm of that, like you said, that was, people were being included at that level. But I think to bring in that kind of level into this collective, and I mean, just for example, 48-hour films, so many people are making them, but there's lots of people who are using that technology, but they're doing it in a weekend if they were to be having more time. And I was like, when you
and support and mentoring,
and just that open forum, a platform, or a like I thought it was so cool how you had at the Show Me Shorts event, and Film Collective met at yours beforehand. I didn't make it, but I thought that was just like bringing, it was such a creative community in Dunedin of all ages and the younger kind of generation. But that would be, I feel, is even like there's opportunities to make a mini series and have it. I don't know where it gets shown, but like that's what I'm into.
Okay.
And I kind of like, so I was a little bit kind of like shy about speaking out, but then I just thought, it's okay.
No, good on you, because in fact, there's a couple of things I pick up on from what you've said, Bridget. One is when I first started in this industry, we used to shoot on film. Anybody remember that? But then when we first moved on to videotape, and machines were $250,000 each. $200,000 for the video recorder, another $200,000 for the camera, and $100,000 for each of the lenses. I mean, it was, the barriers were immense. Now, right, you can do it on your iPhone, and I don't think what you're talking about is fringe. I think what you're talking about is the center. And I talked to when I was up organizing, trying to wring some money out of the Film Commission for the Screenwriters Conference. And I was meeting with Dave Gibson about, trying to get some funding from it, and he'd agreed to to put some money into the conference. And then we were just talking afterwards, and I said, what would you say? What would you say to if an emerging filmmaker came to you today and said, "How do I get into what's the best way to get into the business?" What would you say? And Dave said, I'd tell them to make a video and stick it on YouTube. And what he said is, look, because everybody comes along and they want film commission funding, but if you're a new filmmaker, then when you come, the film commission really has no idea what sort of films that you're going to make. They have no idea what sort of audience there is for the films that you're going to make. And so they've got no idea what chance they have of getting their money back. And he said, you stick a video up on YouTube, and by the time you come to us, you can, we know what sort of film you're going to make because we can see it on YouTube. We know what sort of audience you're going to attract because we can see who's viewed it. And we can then start planning. We can then start planning our investment strategy based on actual data. So what you're talking about is not fringe. What you're talking about is like, this is the current way, and who knows where it's going to go.
How about a radical idea that, to make a fresh story that hasn't gone through years of, planning and rewriting, a really fresh story? Why couldn't you fund people to do that for a small amount instead of having people have to apply for vast amounts and get the full professional crew?
Absolutely.
A different idea that I haven't seen done, but that would be really exciting with a little bit of vetting, but just
the one of the things that Ross Johnson, do you know Ross Johnston? Ross is another old timer, but he was also on the board of Short Film Otago for a long time, and also was formerly the director of the science communication filmmaking course at the university. But Ross has talked for a number of years about exactly that, about actually getting away from the full production, full noise thing, and get out and let's make films with your phone. Because actually everybody focuses, I've wrestled with this ever since I've been in the business. Everybody focuses on the film making. Everybody focuses on the camera, right? Fundamentally, what we're talking about is storytelling. And the camera is just a means of communicating the story. And actually, its story is where most films fall down. That's why they need years of development, because they actually, because the stories haven't been sorted out first. But I mean, I think what you're saying is a great idea, and I mean, hey, what a great initiative for the Southern Film Collective, and going back to the Dunedin film mailing group, I'm sure that if we start sticking a proposal up on there and talking about it, about making it happen, we would generate some interest. Are you ready?
Yeah. What for?
Good. To do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm always ready to do it. I just I'm actually just about to get I'm just about to get a day job, because I was sort of like, I sort of lost my mojo, but
right.
I mean, a part-time. So I want to, I'm always keen to make a good story, and to just I just find the eye adjusts to what it sees as well. You can have the slickest movie, but that's
right.
The priority. Right. That's not the priority for me.
I mean, no, exactly. But if you look, I mean, and this is the other thing that those of us who were brought up on the idea of, films had to be shot on 35mm film, and projected on a giant CinemaScope screen in a big movie theater. Something like 80% of movies these days are viewed on a phone. Right. If you look at the viewing figure, look at the viewing figures, that's where people are viewing films. So it makes no sense at all. To put all your effort into making something to be seen on a huge screen and that will look stunning on a huge screen when most people are going to look at it, on a screen in their pocket. And they're going to look at it while they're sitting on the tube, going home from work at the end of the day. So it comes back to the storytelling. But so I would just say to you, can you write a one pager about what you're envisaging, and how it would work. And send it around and let's make it happen.
Okay, good. Nice one.
That's a really positive, proactive, let's get things happening out there sort of way. Up. And it's I think there's so many possibilities, and it's really, really good to have had lots of writers and creatives, storytellers on this call to be really thinking about what's possible and appreciating what Al has had to share with us.
That's the key, isn't it? Because people talk about writers, but actually, somebody who's I should have always remembered, but I can't for the moment, said writers are artists of original creation. And everybody focuses again on the writing, but actually that's not the key point. The key point is having the original vision. The writing is just a way of articulating and communicating that vision to somebody else, and then the rest of the the producers and directors and everybody else come on board to actually realize it on a screen. But so if you've got a bunch of writers in the room, what it means, you've got a bunch of original visionaries in the room, and we're just got to encourage them to put their visions into a form we can access.
That's for sure. Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and thanks. Big thank you to Al for being on, and we'll share not only the Dunedin film group once you've shared that with me, along with but I really think about getting those in-person workshops, in-person just networking events up and running will be key to getting the real ensuring that what the Southern Filmmakers Collective does is relevant to the people in our regions.
You see, I mean, if I could just make a suggestion, Maddie, in the first instance, which is all we did a number of times in the past, is just put out a word saying that you're going to get together to talk about what you're going to do. Because then people will come along to see what you're going to do, but also they'll bring their ideas. Like Bridget. And that's where your community starts.
Might be the Duke of Wellington, Kerry-Ann. Duke of Wellington. for the Dunedin one, anyway.
It'd be good to have the new and the old's the wrong word, but the previous people come along as well. It'd be great to mix and mingle with both groups.
Absolutely. Because also anybody that's been involved before is in fact going to be heartened by the idea that their work has not been wasted. So it should be good. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing the next developments and hearing from you again.
That's great. Thank you.
Thanks. I just see we have a question from Patrick. Is there going to be a Christmas catch-up for Dunedin film community? I think if there isn't anything in the pipeline, I will definitely aim to try and pull something together. Really ideal would be to get around Dunedin and Otago and Queenstown, but yeah, one that's not in yes, one that's not in Queenstown. But I think
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, rather than us necessarily.
I mean, this is always a problem. Yeah,
tag along with somebody else.
This,
let's make get a Dunedin one going at the very least. For filmmakers.
One thought that springs to mind, Maddie, because this whole regional separation thing has just been the bane of my life for as long as I've been involved. Because I'm not going to I'm not going to go and travel to Queenstown for a Christmas party. I don't expect people from Queenstown to travel down here for a Christmas party. But I wonder about if you're going to organise an event locally, try to organise so it can be streamed, so that people can tune in from their own zone, and at least feel connected. It's not the same. It's not the same as being there, but it's better than missing out.
True. Yeah, that's for sure. Yep. Well,
maybe. Yeah.
Look
Anyway.
at
Maybe they might have their own Christmas parties.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
And WIFT and the Writers Guild are good. They have Christmas parties, Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch.
Yeah. We're supposed to also have annual general meetings, and I used to diligently organise them down here until about the third year, when I was along at the Writers Guild AGM at the Duke of Wellington, and I was the only one there, and I came to the conclusion. To the conclusion that perhaps I didn't need to go and have a drink with myself to meet the requirements of our constitution. But anyway. All right. Thanks, people, for your time and attention and feedback. I wish you well.
Thanks, Al.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you all again soon.